Hi guys, welcome back to the Knitting Expat Podcast. My name is Mina, welcome. I am coming to you today from my home here in the UK. I live just south of London in Kent. And yeah, if you are not aware, if you're new around here or you haven't watched the last few videos that I've been posting, then you may not know that we've moved house. We moved house just over a month ago. And yeah, we are now in our new home. It's an older house. It's a Victorian building, a Victorian home, which is amazing. I never dreamed we'd be able to afford to buy a period property, and this one needs a lot of love and care and updating and just fixing up a little bit, but we are so excited to make this place our own. And yeah, I will probably be sharing some of that process in vlogs and stuff over the coming weeks and months and probably years, but this channel is mainly a knitting channel. I share mostly in the podcast, I share about my knitting, my spinning, my crafting in general, and then I also post vlogs, just general day-to-day stuff, sometimes like behind the scenes of what I'm doing. Occasionally I'll post tutorials or other sorts of videos along those lines as well. Sorry, I've just got fluff everywhere. But yeah, my office is actually in the attic top floor roof space of our house. It had previously been converted into a room, so that's where I am now. I've got all my stuff behind me. You can see my yarn cabinet here, and my fibre cabinet is over there, and my desk to the side, and I have bookshelves and stuff in the back with all my other bits in it as well. So at some point I will do a bit of a studio tour once I've had this room a bit more done up. I'm planning on painting all the walls in here, and once I've done that, I think I will then get the room set up a little bit more like officially, more properly, I guess, and yeah, and then I'll be able to share my sort of studio setup. Anyway, that's a bit of a ramble. I've been a little bit inactive on social media the last couple of months, purely because of the move and all the stress involved around it. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail around that. If you want to know more about the move, everything that went down around that, and the first few days after we moved, I did vlog all of that, and I will link the moving vlogs playlist below this video in the description box. And speaking of the description box, you can find links to everywhere that you can find me down there below in that box. And yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, on Ravelry, on Payhip. I'm a knitwear designer, so you can find my designs on Ravelry and Payhip as Knitting Expat Designs. And yeah, I also have a newsletter now that I've had for the last couple of months. I don't send out a ton of newsletters, it's like one a month at the moment, and or if I have like a specific bit of news I want to share, then I'll send out like a quick one just to like let you know that piece of information. But otherwise I typically only send out a newsletter once a month or so. I'm not one of those people to want to sit there and spam you and stuff like that. It's more just a way to keep you updated. I know Instagram's a bit unreliable in terms of how many people see my posts. Based on my analytics on Instagram, I can tell that maybe, I think only like 10% of my audience actually see my photos and stuff when I post, and I think that's also part of the reason why I've not been posting as much over there. It's just no matter what I do, it doesn't seem to be getting out to everybody as much. So the newsletter is a great way if you really want to like get any updates and information about pattern releases, other things I have coming up, etc., just general life updates. I will be sending those out via the newsletter, and that way you can be guaranteed you will be getting that information if that is what you'd like. And then I also have a separate newsletter set up for test knitting. So that one I will only send out an email if I have a test knit ready to go, sort of thing. So you won't be getting an email from me until I have something ready for test knitting. I do have 2 sweaters that I'm currently working on, which I will hopefully have ready for test knitting in the next 1 to 2 months. I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself right now, just because I know things are still a little bit hectic and are going to get a bit more hectic going forward with work and stuff we're doing on the house. Anyway, the one thing I do have going at the moment is my sock club, and that's the Around the World in 8 Socks sock club. I think just after we last spoke, or around, yeah, I definitely didn't podcast last month because of the move, but last month's release were the Rome socks, and I wanted to show them on the podcast just because I never got round to sharing them on camera. If I can get that to focus, that'd be nice one. There we go. As it's just a really lovely smock stitch pattern essentially, and I have a tutorial video for this smock stitch because it's only written, there's one method of working it written in the pattern, but I show you three variations on knitting this smock stitch in a tutorial video on this channel. It's also linked in the pattern as well, and yeah, so there's multiple ways, and I think actually even the 3 ways that I've come up with are not the only ways to do it. There have been people in the chatter thread for this knit along in my Ravelry group on Ravelry that have mentioned other ways, other options and ways of working the smock stitch that have worked for them. So be sure to check that out if that is something you are interested in. The club is available all the time. You can always join the club. It is not limited to people who've signed up at the very beginning. You can join in whenever you like and knit the patterns in whatever order you like. There are no real rules when it comes to a pattern club. You just sign up and you get the updates. So if you signed up now, you would get all the patterns that are currently released already, and then you'll get all the future ones as and when they are released at the beginning of each month. So for the beginning of June, the pattern was the Dubai socks, and oh, I forgot to mention, so for the Rome socks, the dyer was birch hollow fibers, and this was, the colorway was, I think it's called a Hint of Rouge. It's on her Sojourner base. I can't remember the fiber content, and I probably butchered the pronunciation of that name, but it's a beautiful, beautiful sort of like almost corally red color. And the Dubai socks were a self-striping yarn dyed by my friend Josie, who lives in Dubai, and her yarn company is Dubai Knits. She doesn't dye yarn super regularly, it's kind of like a side thing for her, but when I was doing this club and Dubai was going to be one of the destinations we went to because it's somewhere I've lived in the past, I was like, I can't think of anyone else I would ask to dye yarn for Dubai than my friend Josie, who lives in Dubai and is a yarn dyer. So, and she offered to do a self-striping colorway, and the colorway is called A Creek Runs Through It, or And a Creek Runs Through It. And yeah, and I decided to go with a cabled pattern because I was inspired by the sand dunes of Dubai. Whenever I think of Dubai, I think of the desert and sand dunes, and it's just a big part of my memory of our time there, and so I thought it tied in really well. And it's a really great pattern that works beautifully with self-striping yarn as well. Like, it doesn't detract from the self-striping, and the self-striping doesn't detract from the cables, but of course you can work it on any kind of yarn you would like. I will have both of these dyes shops linked below in the description box as well. I'm not sure if Josie still has this yarn available for order on her website or not, but I will have it linked anyway. And I'm trying to think what else I was going to say. Yeah, so we have 4 more destinations to travel to. The next one for next month is going to be Hong Kong, and I'm super excited about that. The dyer for Hong Kong is Eva from Seismic Yarns. She's based out of San Francisco, but she has ties to Hong Kong, and yeah, I think you can already go ahead and purchase the yarn from her website already, from the dye to order section on her website. So I'll also, if I can remember, link her website as well. So that's it in terms of like just general news to let you know at the beginning. Moving on, we have some finished objects, then some works in progress, and finally some acquisitions, and then a bit of like a chit chat at the end. So in terms of finished objects, I have a few, but bear in mind this is like 2 months worth of stuff, so really not a lot. If you know me, you've been around for a while, you know that typically I have more than this after a couple of months. But the first thing I have, and I'm pretty sure I finished knitting this just after our last podcast. I don't even know if I showed it as a work in progress or not, but it's just a simple hat for my daughter. She picked this yarn out of my stash. It is by Bad Wolf Girl Studios, and the colorway, I think it was called Stranger Things, because it's Stranger Things inspired colorway, and it's basically just a little cat hat. So when she puts it on, the corners just become little cat ears. And I had knit one like this for her before in pink, or like a pinky red color, and it's getting a bit small for her now, so she picked this yarn out of my stash. She wanted something that had sparkles in it, and this is a Stellina base yarn. I'm not sure if you can sort of see the sparkle there. So she picked this, and it's a fingering weight yarn. I held it double. I think I cast on something like 100 stitches. just knit a bunch. I can't remember how long I knit it for, and then just did a 3 needle bind off at the top. No shaping, nothing. It's a really simple hat to knit. It's a great sort of beginner hat pattern. There's no real pattern either. I just sort of cast on and went for it. But yeah, so that's that. That's been finished and blocked for a while, but obviously it's summer now, so she's not going to be wearing that until, well, at least not for a few months. Then next up, the rest of my finished objects are socks, and that will give you a bit of an insight into my mental headspace for the last couple of months and where I've been at in terms of like my ability to focus on any kind of knitting. So I knit this pair of socks from a sock blank by Little Bean Loves Yarn, and it's just a rainbow sock blank. So I split it in half and just knit 2 halves of the rainbow. I didn't quite make it to the red on the bottom of this one, and I didn't quite make it to the green on the bottom of this one, which would have matched to the top, to the green at the top here, but that's fine. And yeah, I haven't blocked these yet. Again, lets you know where I'm at. I have woven in the ends on this pair, which is more than I can say for the rest, and I finished these just before we moved, if I'm remembering correctly. So all my socks, I knit them on 2.25mm needles, US size 1s. Typically my Chiaogus, I use either the 80cm 32-inch length cord or a 40-inch 100m length cord, fixed circular needles for my sock knitting, depending whether I'm doing them 2 at a time or concurrently on 2 separate needles. Just give you a quick rundown because it's basically the same for all of these socks. The next pair of socks that I started just before we moved and finished probably a couple of weeks after we moved in are these socks. This is out of Patterns Croy. I can't remember the colorway for this one, but it's a pretty popular one. I've knit, actually, I think I've probably knit 2 pairs of socks out of this colorway before. So I'm knitting another one. These are going to be for my dad. I did a contrasting heel out of some Knit Picks Felice or Stroll, I think it's Stroll yarn, in this sort of like mustardy colour. I haven't woven in the ends, which is, there again, if you know me at all and you've been around for a while, you'll know I don't typically leave my ends unwoven. I typically, once I've bound off or finished a pair of socks, I weave in the ends straight away. I have not done that on this pair. And then the next pair of socks that I finished, and I finished these yesterday, and I cast these on more than a couple of weeks ago, so again, really not been knitting a huge amount, are these socks. These are Knit Picks Felice socks in the, I want to say the Dragon Boat is the colorway for these, or it's Dragon something. I'm pretty sure it's Dragon Boat. The stripes don't perfectly match up, which doesn't really bother me at all. And again, I've got a contrasting heel in this like navy merino nylon sock yarn. I don't know where it's from, but it's just something I had in my stash. And yet again, ends are not woven in. Not like me at all, but you know, I'm going to hopefully sit down, weave in these ends whilst I'm editing this podcast, and then I will block all these socks finally. So that's where I've been at in terms of my knitting. Literally all I can manage are vanilla socks. So there we go, that's what my headspace is at right now. So in terms of works in progress, you'll be glad to know I have moved on from the vanilla socks. And I'm now working on the sock pattern for Tokyo, for the Tokyo month in the sock club that I'm running. So that is being housed in this lovely project bag by Darn Yarn MN. And the print on it, if you do not recognise it, is my watercolour painting of the world map that I did for the sock club. And so I arranged with Chelsea, who is the maker behind Darn Yarn MN bags, to get the print printed on some fabric, and she turned them into these beautiful project bags. And so this is the zippered pouch. I think she may or may not now, I don't know. Last time I checked, she had a couple of bags still left in stock. Both, she got them in drawstring and in the zippered pouch version. And so in here are the socks, which I'm not going to show you. So this bit is kind of a crossover between works in progress and acquisitions, because this and the yarn were acquisitions since the last time I podcasted. So the yarn is by Big Little Yarn Co. And Mel is actually based out of Japan right now. I can't remember exactly where in Japan she is. Oh, there we go, it says on the back. Hyogo. In Hyogo, Japan. and the colorway is called Autumn in Tokyo, and it's a merino nylon fingering weight blend. And so yeah, it's kind of like the reds and oranges that you see in the maple leaves and the leaves of the trees in Japan as they change color, and so really beautiful. And like I said, I'm working on those socks now. I have a couple of extra skeins. Some of the dyers were incredibly generous. Some of the dyers for the sock club were incredibly generous and sent me additional skeins. I only expected one skein from each dyer for the socks that I needed to knit up, but some sent me extra skeins, which I am collating together to create a couple of like prize packs to do a like giveaway from the thread in the Ravelry group from all the people who are taking part this year and who have knit socks. So if you are taking part, whether you join now or from the beginning or later even, and you knit some of the socks or any of the socks from the club, feel free to pop onto Ravelry into the thread there. I think there's just one thread that I'm going to draw from, and I'll just draw until I hit a finished object post. I'm going to draw several prizes at the end of the year once all the patterns have been released, to send out some bigger sort of prize bundles for, geez, fibre everywhere, for some of you guys who are taking part. Then in terms of other acquisitions, I did actually do a video a couple of weeks ago, last week before, can't remember now, everything's kind of blurring into one, where I did a bit of a knitting unboxing where I showed these things as well in more detail. That's why I'm not spending too much time on them right now. But a couple of other things that I got, and these were sent to me for review, so they were sent to me, but you know, I'm just going to be reviewing them. I'm not being paid to talk about these things. The latest issue of Pom Pom, so I'll be reviewing this coming up soon. And then I was also sent several books from Arnold Culliford Knitwear. So three. One of them was just sent to me as an ebook from their Something to Learn range. So they sent me something to learn about lace, something new to learn about cables, and they also digitally sent me something new to learn about helical knitting, which I was really interested in. I'm interested in all of them, but I have some experience with lace and cables, but I don't have any experience with helical knitting, so I was particularly interested in that one. And then they also sent me Boost Your Knitting, which is a year of knitting techniques, so it's kind of like a year-long club that they ran. And this year they have another one that's going, which they've also sent me digitally because it's not finished yet to have a book, called, I think it's called Confident Knitting or Knitting Confidently. I always forget which version it is. And it's just a book full of patterns and techniques and just learning new techniques as you go along. So this one has a year of techniques, and I'm trying to find the list of the techniques that are included in this one. So we have, let me see. Okay, so we have tuck stitches, fixing mistakes in lace, tubular cast on, dip stitches, intarsia in the round, choosing colours for stranded colour work, brioche stitch, joining in yarns, marlisle, double knitting, toe up, gusset heel, and finishing techniques for toy knitting. So those are all the different techniques that are explored in this book, and each technique, there's a technique section where they talk through the actual techniques, and then there's a pattern that it goes with it as well that then implements that technique within a project. So it's a really lovely idea, and it's great for someone who is kind of like has been knitting for a while, wants to expand on their skills and learn a bit more, and this is like a really great way of doing that. And they have, I think they also have video tutorials for a lot of the techniques as well. Like I said, I haven't read the books yet fully, and I will be doing a more thorough review on those coming up at some point soon. Okay, so that's it for everything that's come in so far that I haven't already talked about. In terms of spinning, if you saw, I did post the spinning vlog video again a couple of weeks ago, which was filmed actually before we moved in our old house, where I purchased some fibre from a couple of UK-based fibre producers, and they had some like bits and bobs bags of fibre that I got, and I showed how I turned those into rolags and mini bats. And I took one set of the rolags and I showed you how I spun them as well, and then this is the finished yarn. I still actually need to wash this yarn as well, so that will go into the pile of things that needs to be washed and blocked and whatevers. But this was the yarn that I spun from the rolags that I had made up in that video, and this is the last thing that I've spun. My spinning wheel is still in its bag under a table in the corner over there. You can't see it on the camera right now, but I need to get that out and get that set up, because I'm finding that, you know, there are some times where I just do not have the brain space to deal with knitting or to deal with a new design or things like that, but I still want to do something creative. So I think my spinning wheel is something I really want to get back into for that purpose. That's it for like all the knitting stuff. Just a quick little rundown on what's been going on recently in our lives. Like I said, I did vlog the initial move process. I actually filmed the vlog on Monday. Mondays and Fridays are what we call around here Mummy Layla days, because Layla doesn't go to preschool on those days. Layla is my 4-year-old daughter, if you're new and you don't know. She goes to preschool 3 days a week, which are my work days, which today is one of those. But on Mondays and Fridays we have Mummy Layla days, because that's when Daddy works and Mummy and Layla get to spend time together and we go do things usually. COVID kind of ruined that for a while, but this Monday was the first Mummy Layla day that kind of felt like it was back to normal, just a tiny little bit. We went for a walk into town, and there's a river that runs near where we live, so we walked down to the river, walked along the river's edge, the footpath into town. We went to a little coffee shop. She had a brownie, I had coffee. We walked around a couple of shops. There were a few bits I needed to pick up for the summer. And then we had lunch together out, and then we came home and just relaxed all afternoon. So I did vlog some of that. It is a fairly short vlog. There's a little bit of an update at the end of the video as well, which will hopefully be out before you see this video. I'm not entirely sure. I literally had so many things planned to be productive today and do, and then we lost internet this morning. So I'm not sure when that video is edited, all ready to go. It was supposed to go up this morning, but like I said, I now have no internet to upload that video, so we will see what happens. It kind of seems to have been like a countrywide outage with Virgin Media today, so fun times. Hopefully that will come back this afternoon and I can get that posted, and then this podcast will, today is Thursday the 10th of June, so hopefully this podcast will be up tomorrow on Friday or the Saturday potentially. In terms of house stuff, what have we been up to? We've actually started stripping wallpaper, which is exciting. It looks like we actually started in the hardest room in the house. So basically all the wallpaper that does exist in this house has been painted over, which makes it a little bit harder to remove, because I mean we were using a steamer, like a wall steamer thing, to get the paper off, but if it's been painted over, it's kind of hard to get the steam past the paint to get under the paper to actually release it from the wall. So for the room that we started in on the ground floor, I ended up having to score the wallpaper wall with a Stanley knife, or like a scalpel knife, whatever you call them, and then I would soak the wall with like a wallpaper removing fluid, and then I would go over it with a steamer and then be able to scrape it off with a scraper. So it was like a really labor intensive process. It took me most of an afternoon just to do one wall, and this was a small room. This is like one of the smallest rooms in the house, and I'm just like, why is this taking so long? And then the next morning, or that evening actually, my entire right arm completely seized up, and I was in so much pain, and it wasn't muscle pain, this was nerve pain, and I'd had it happen a couple of times before. Anyway, the next day it was a little bit better, but not entirely better, and we did end up stripping all the wallpaper in our bedroom, which came off thankfully so much easier. In the amount of time it took me to do one wall in the smallest room in this house, we were able to strip all the paper off the wall in our bedroom, which is the biggest room in the house that needs to be stripped. Perry did most of it, obviously because of my arm, but I did whatever I could to help him around that, like cleaning up and other bits. And then yeah, and that's kind of where we stopped at the moment. We still have some other areas to do, but that was a good start as it was, and now we kind of have our process down, so it shouldn't take too long to do most of the rest. And the reason why we're doing this now is we're actually getting a plasterer is coming in on Monday to start replastering our walls, which will be lovely. Originally we were just going to get a decorator in, and then we soon realized that actually the walls are all quite uneven. The plastering that's already been done is a bit rough, and there's lots of cracks and stuff, very superficial stuff, like nothing structurally dangerous, but very superficial. Like the walls are really old. It's an old building. It's almost 150 years old, this house, so you know, it just needs some sprucing up, as it were. Sorry, all that sort of creaking stuff is my chair. So we're having a plasterer come in. We realised actually it's going to be cheaper, more efficient and quicker to have someone come in and just replaster all the walls and give us a fresh walls to paint, essentially, and just have like a nice clean slate, nice flat walls, nice smooth walls to paint. So that's what we're doing. So that's starting on Monday. We're not going to be doing this room yet, so I'm just going to repaint the walls as they are, and because I think at some point in the future we're planning on doing some more extensive work up here. So my kind of philosophy, or our philosophy with the house, is to not spend money in areas where we're potentially just going to undo that work later down the line by doing other things. So for now, this room functions perfectly fine as my office as it is. At some point, like I said, we want to do other things to it, and so for now all I'm going to do is repaint the walls and just paint everything white, so it's a nice bright white studio. It'll be great for filming, for photography and stuff like that, to have like nice white walls. And that's just what we're going to do up here for now. And then so we're mainly going to be focusing on the ground floor and the first floor and all of the corridors and staircases and stuff like that. We're also not doing anything on the lower ground floor where the kitchen and living room are, because again, that is going to be a big project in and of itself, where we basically want to kind of gut and redo that whole floor. But that's like a 2 to 3 year down the line kind of project. So for now we're focusing on the middle floors, as it were, and just sprucing things up, getting the things that we can do now done. So that's starting on Monday, which is exciting. And then what else are we doing? Yeah, so that's it for that. My mum's actually going to come to stay for a few days this weekend, which will be really nice to have her around. We've also done some stuff out in the garden, just sort of pruning what's already there, cutting back. Perry's been doing some de-weeding, some stuff in the vegetable beds and things like that. We've started repainting the summer house down at the bottom of the garden. There's a few of the outdoor things that Perry wants to repaint, just to kind of give them a bit more longevity, like fix them up, patch them up with wood filler and stuff where they need it, and fix it up. We want to repaint the play equipment stuff for Layla. I'm thinking underneath the little playhouse bit where the slide comes off, there's like a little area underneath it. I'm thinking of turning that into like a little sand pit for her to have to play in. Yeah, just lots of little things that we're doing. We're not doing anything major in the garden at the moment. We have ideas of what we want to do long term with the garden, but like I said, right now we're focusing our finances on getting the house done up and just doing what we can ourselves in the garden for now, until we are prepared and ready to tackle that project, because that will be a project in and of itself. There's a lot that we want to do with the garden. There's a lot we want to do, full stop. It's more about right now prioritizing what we can afford to do at this particular moment, and what's going to give us the biggest yes, bang for our buck kind of situation, kind of like what's going to have the biggest impact immediately to make this place feel more homey for us than anything else. Yeah, so that's pretty much it right now. We've had a spout of really good summer weather, which we are really enjoying, and hopefully that will continue. Alright, so I will hopefully be back with another, hopefully more interesting podcast. I don't know if this was boring or not, I hope it wasn't, in the next month, hopefully. And in the meantime, keep your eye out for other little vlogs and other little bits that might crop up on the channel until then. Alright, take care. See you guys again soon. Bye!